Hello, and welcome to Soul Play, where we explore the art of living with curiosity, connection, and creativity. I'm your host, Sarah Benlaw, and I'm so incredibly grateful you're here. Throughout my journey, I've crossed paths with remarkable individuals, guests who join us here to share their wisdom, stories, and practical insights. These inspiring voices are shaping a better world, offering perspectives and tools that my younger self would have loved to discover. Soul Play is more than just a podcast. It's an invitation for all of us to show up authentically, reclaim our power, and reconnect with the essence of who we truly are. Today's guest is Maura Finn. Maura comes with a diverse background and extensive healing toolkit. As a writer, poet, educator, expressive arts facilitator, yoga instructor, and accomplished energy medicine practitioner with a focus on crisis and trauma healing, she has alchemized years of experimentation and experience into simple wisdom. A core tenet of her work is to invite and allow compassionate trial and error by means of immersion with life. Using various techniques and offerings, she supports others in finding their honest potential through integrated creative approaches and somatic awareness, including deep listening, stillness, and reflection. As a nature and forest therapy guide, she guides the individual back to the places of remembering who they are so that natural states of being have the freedom to emerge. In this heartfelt conversation, we explore healing, trust, and self-discovery. Maura and I dive into soul spelunking, the practice of journeying into our inner depths, gathering wisdom, and returning with a renewed sense of presence. Through stories and reflections, she shares insights on somatic healing, creativity, and reconnecting with the more than human world. Together, we unpack the power of intuition, joy, and learning to trust life's unfolding. If you're on a path towards deeper self-awareness and belonging, this episode's for you. Without further ado, I welcome Maura Finn. Maura, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sarah. This is a dream come true. Ooh. For both you and me. I mean, I think.
Big time. I've been reflecting with friends. I'm fangirling pretty hard. I'm like, dreams do come true. Maura, my therapist, is on Soul Play. Welcome. It's such an honor to be sitting across from you, having this intentional conversation together. Really, I'm kind of like, should we just stop Soul Play now that I've accomplished all my dreams? But absolutely not.
Absolutely
if we could
not.
Conceptualize all our dreams, then what would we be doing? There's no
Exactly.
destination, just keep going. But yeah, an absolute honor. Thank you for taking the time. And I have the pleasure of knowing you pretty well, but our guests do not. So if you don't mind taking a moment to introduce yourself and let us know why you're here.
Why am I here? So first, I am super grateful, and it's also a really opening of the heart experience to see you bring this to fruition, because I know, all the little bits and pieces that were kind of growing and blooming, and then you're full bloom now, and you've done so many of these podcasts already, so it's pretty exciting to be here doing that. Why am I here? Well, I'm really here to help people and animals and plants and the planet, so that's kind of the bigger picture. And it's always been really hard for me to put labels on what I do and who I am. So that is kind of that question that pokes and prods and asks me to trust that. And I suppose I've worn a lot of different hats. And, I was an educator for many, many years. And through that, moved into expressive arts therapy and also combined yoga and movement. And then really, it was the trauma healing that was that led me in the direction of doing trauma work and working in different aspects of that somatically with the body, using energy medicine, and working with children and adults with their inner child. So it's really taken a lot of different twists and turns. At my core, I'm a writer and a poet, and believe in creativity, and a huge animal lover. So somehow that all comes in and into the Soul Play. So I guess that's does that answer the question? Does that give a little bit about what?
Absolutely. It's a beautiful start. Thank you. Like, you have such a rich background, and I too am so struck by creativity and the power of creative expression, and I've had the benefits received from you as a therapist with creative art expression. And trauma, there's a lot of trauma going on currently, right? And people, all humans, children, adults, our inner childs, if we can really kind of speak to that. What what are people coming to you with? What would you say is the biggest, most common wound, if you could really pinpoint that?
You know, I guess the word that keeps coming to me is really, it's trust and lack thereof. So, you know, when we come into this earth and we're born into this body, and it's that first wounding, right? That first trauma of separation and believing that we're separate from what we came from. And we don't have to even postulate and figure out what that is that we come from, but it's always just this, like, taking the steps to come back to what we are, to come back to love, to come back to that. And of course, there's all these spiritual platitudes and things that we can say over and over that, you know, you must love yourself and it's self-love. And, you know, I think that's complex, but it's also quite simple. And it can be anything and everything combined to do the healing. And so, you know, I feel like even though I have different bodies that come to me in different backgrounds and different countries and, you know, ancestral trauma or whatever it is, it really comes back to, you know, can you listen to your heart? Can you listen to what's there? And are you willing to keep taking the steps to go? And as I think in our first session or two, I told you I created this idea of soul spelunking, and you know,
so happy this is coming up. Absolutely.
and you know, it's like this deep dive, but often because of trauma and because of the capacity of trauma to be so fragile and so deep and so painful, when we do the soul spelunking, the thing is, when you're a spelunker, you go into the cave, but you come back out. And I believe in that, gathering the gems, going in, digging, getting the stalactites, the stalagmites, getting all that stuff, you know, but then coming back up and then living your life and not constantly feeling like you have to keep clawing away and digging away at that. Because inevitably we're always going to experience some form of trauma or hurt, but we can gauge our healing by how our fortitude and our resilience of continuing to move forward and not let that drown us.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also, we're missing the present moment if we stay down there. It's valuable work. The descent, I think, is necessary for spiritual development, for spiritual healing, to come back to wholeness, really.
And to even feel what wholeness is like on an integral level, of like a truly embodied level of like, oh my gosh, I'm actually not going to stop feeling this particular way, like this internal part of me that is, you know, jealous, let's say, you know, or envious of what other people have. It's still going to come up, and you're going to just kiss it and be like, hey, sweetie, I know you're there, and let's be in that for a moment, but then keep moving. And, you know, as you said, the present moment is where all the gifts are. And the interesting part about the spiritual journey that I've noticed, not that I'm that old, but, you know, I have a few decades.
In this space-time continuum.
In this space-time, I mean, yeah, right. I mean, I'm pretty old, but in this human body, I've got a few decades. But it's just fascinating to see how there really is this journey that humans go through, and whether it's like they get all in on the spiritual thing and they're like going to try out every possible combination of activities, or they swing the pendulum to the other side where they're completely like against God and life and source and whatever it is. But it's like you almost can predict sort of the pathway, but no one's predictable in that way either, because you don't know how they're going to end up sharing their gifts from what they do in the descent.
It's kind of a paradox.
Yeah, it is a paradox. It's pretty interesting. Mm-hmm. Or even thinking that the mundane, not seeing that it's sacred, but believing that like, oh, if I go do this 9 to 5, or if I do this job that's not so fancy, or I don't get to wear a costume to do it, you know, that it means you're not doing your work, or you're not following your mission. Because it's almost like a painter's palette where they have all the colors and then you start to mix them in. I think we have these skill sets that we use and try them out in all these different areas. But then it's when joy comes in, is when you know you're like, I'm on it. Like, this is what I want to keep. I want more of this. So where can I seek my joy in all these spaces? And, you know, I know for you, like, sharing this is a joy.
Big time. Yeah. Yeah. Essence, right? There is this sense of like homeness and like passion, desire, drive for something greater than you. You know, like something that you and I have in common is you started the podcast, like, I want to help people. I also want to help people. I want to help people help themselves. And this soul spelunking journey with you has really been so deeply eye-opening, because when I was raised, there was this undertone of understanding that the world is happening to me. Like, I don't have a lot of control, and not to say that I do, but I am an active participant here, and I do have the innate capacity to heal, right? I don't need to give something outside of me and ask someone to heal me. I think the big change with you, Maura, was that you sent me into myself. You weaved a cocoon for me of safety, where I could explore the depths, really go deep into these caverns of thought and idea. And you mentioned like jealousy, for example, or all these different parts that if we don't sit in stillness, we don't even bring an awareness necessarily to all the different voices and beings and parts that are alive within us. And I think being able to explore that with you was really paramount. Yeah.
Well, and even just hearing you, speaking to that multiplicity of the psyche and how it's, I know we always joke, but we mean it, that we are multidimensional beings. And it's like, what does that actually really, really, really mean? Like, I know that I have my physical body, I have my emotional body, I have my pain body, I have my mental and all of that. And then within that, it's like, there's a colony, there's so many pieces, and some of them rise up and hide and move at all times. But, healing comes when you feel that there is like this space that's being held for you to remember who you are. And that's always been the one tenet that I have, that's my driving force, the integrous way with which I want to live my life is to remember that even though everyone's a mirror of me, my clients who come to me, I'm going to borrow benefits. Inevitably, something that they're working through is something that I'm working through. But it's also knowing that I am not the one that is doing it for you. I do have a strong toolbox. I have a huge skill set. There are things like, people aren't paying me to, they're not paying me to care for them. But they're supporting the exchange of, I'm going to use what I have and bring to the table. I would care for you for free. I care for people for free, but it's like, how do we bring in this whole dimension of exchange and reminding people, let me just help you remember, and then I can guide you. So it's like a guidance system that's activating your inner guidance system, and inevitably I learn through you. And then there's also, the adage that says you can only take people as far as you've gone. And so as a counselor, as a therapist, as a healer, as a facilitator of anything, it is a constant work of looking at yourself, getting your own support, and being willing to, revisit shit that you thought that you had thought that I had healed that, and it's like, here it is again, surprise, it's like the whack-a-mole, like, oh, that shit's back again. But that doesn't mean you have to be like, I am pure and perfect and I am innocent and I am this saint. Now, fuck that,
You're
like,
human.
You're human, and that has been the gig, like, can you have the most spiritual experience of life by being a human in all of its messiness and all of its glory?
The full spectrum. Because what are we here to do otherwise? Yeah, and I think that was one of the biggest things that attracted me to you was your humanness, Like, it's so inspiring because there are these, as the listeners got some insight, like, I admire you. You inspire me big time. Like, I'm fangirling, but I also do see your humanity. And that allows me to be more compassionate with myself, that like, oh, Maura, who's doing all this work and development and helping people throughout their processes and guiding them with a huge toolkit, she's still a human.
Yeah. I still get confused. I still doubt myself. Like, it's so frustrating to say that, and be like, yeah, I still doubt myself. I still go into depressive states, where I'm wanting to give up on all of it. But I also get out of my own way and know, like you said, there's something greater than me that's guiding me, that I am connected to, that I am the hollow bone through which can process through me. And that's humility.
Humbling. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And so to admit that I'm fallible and that I'm flawed, I don't want to be perfect. I certainly thought that as a child and thought that's how I would get love and how I would have to be. But I see perfection in even the breaking, right? And,
Yeah.
and to not allow there to be, you know, we're having this conversation now, and it's, you know, always boundaries, of course, you know, where when you're in a container with someone, they're not gonna probably pour their stuff on you. Hopefully not in a therapeutic container, you know. But there's also, I can share personal stories of, hey, this is something I experienced. Maybe this will reflect something to you, maybe not. Because if we're always compartmentalizing ourselves, then we're not being authentic.
There's a distance there. There is a level of appropriate self-disclosure. I completely agree. Yeah, and it can help the bond as long as it's something that I can connect to my story, right? And that is helping me see the light at the end of the tunnel, right? Like, I think that's a big part. Something I keep hearing is your toolkit. I would love for you to unpack that as best you can here.
It's like a Mary Poppins bag, I think, a little bit more, because I do like to break into song. What is a toolkit, right? Like, what does that even mean is very interesting. And I guess it's what have I used for myself that has worked for me so that I could then bring that. And obviously I could sit here and be like, let's just look at my CV and I can tell you all of the trainings I've done and this and that, but I never felt like that was necessary. And I don't think I have ever had someone ask me that because it's more of the resonance of let's talk. Let me tell you what I can do. Let me hear what you're needing and let's see if we can explore it. And then being in integrity of, if it's out of my wheelhouse, then I'm happy to pass along another resource or something like that. I guess the biggest toolkit, though, I mean, the biggest tool in the toolbox or the Mary Poppins bag is really energy and energy medicine. And I believe that I've finally gotten the confidence to start talking about that because it's more in the zeitgeist, because it's safer now to be able to discuss energy and how energy works on the psycho-spiritual level. Thankfully. But man, hiding that for most of my life was really painful and isolating, and it made me think something was wrong with me. And from a tiny child, I could feel energies from trees, spending time outside. I connected to animals in really deep ways that I just knew what they needed. And a funny story is that when I was 15, I found a psychic hotline, this 1-800 number where you used to have a phone where you actually had numbers you pressed, and I called up this psychic, and I just wanted to see what that would be like. And she told me that, she's like, you're very intuitive, and explained a little bit more about that. And I'm like, oh, she's just saying that because I'm paying her $2 a minute, But then it went into, she's like, you can talk to animals. And I remember being so shocked because I'm like, yes, I can.
How does she know?
How does she know? This must be real. And she's like, you're going to use that in your life. And of course, this ended up being like a $25 bill. I got in a whole lot of trouble for that. Oof. But the point being, that felt like maybe a little flame that kept me going. And then actually, when I was in my early 20s, I connected with another intuitive about an animal that I had rescued from the side of the road. And we were we connected with each other over a period of probably 7 years off and on. And it was probably my opening to understanding intuition and energy, and why my hands would get hot, or why I would feel things, or why I could sense what was in someone's body, or why I could actually know without knowing how someone was feeling and what that emotion, where it was sitting in their body, and how to help them work with it and dialogue with it and move it. So for sure, it's like this awesome, and I use the word awesome not like in cool, but like awe-inspiring. It's an awesome gift.
Superpower.
It's a superpower. And it comes with a lot of, with great responsibility, right? It comes with great responsibility to be able to utilize it in a way that is clean and is heart-centered. And of course, there's all these modalities now. People know Reiki, and I'm a Reiki master. I'm a shamanic Reiki master. I did all of that, but I don't use Reiki in that way. whereas I call on symbols or anything like that. It's just been additional on my journey. I use EFT, tapping, which is also, it's energy medicine, working with the meridians, helping us tap into information from our own bodies and our own subconscious mind. And then, deep self-compassion and journey work, where it's something I can't quite explain. I just know how to do it. And it takes people into spaces that are alternative, energetic spaces where things get expanded and truths come up. But of course, then there's yoga and movement and nature and walking and journaling and drawing and painting and singing and chanting and sound healing and, the whole thing. Like, we all have the capacity to dabble in all of it. And I just check in. Like, I like to know there's a lot of ways that I can support myself personally, but then also I am really open to other people helping me too. So sometimes it's also, actually, I should say, the simplest of these tools is silence.
Sure. Creating space.
And that's hard.
Big time. It's a busy world currently.
And it's a busy mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it is nature. It's being outside and just not expecting anything, but just being present with what is.
And allowing things to come up that are inside of us that we would otherwise perhaps push down with distraction or busyness. Yeah. It's a big toolkit, and it's inspiring to hear, right? Because we're all such unique, individualized people that is the same thing for me going to work for someone else? Not necessarily, but go towards what resonates. That was a big thing in our time together that I absolutely loved, was just, does this resonate? Because then there's a sense of like, what is my essence? What is my truth? There's like empowering of like allowing my voice to be worthy, to be heard, and a sense of knowing within myself, like, okay, I can identify what resonates and maybe what doesn't, and stick with what does.
Absolutely. And that's also, I think one of the most important tenets of interpersonal relating is agency.
Yes.
And autonomy and sovereignty, and knowing that we're not in a hierarchical system. Someone's not better than another. The dynamic is, I'm here serving a purpose and you're coming because you need something that I can offer, but also let me help you remember how what I have is also what you have, but it gets uncovered in a different way. And I think that invitations are so necessary, and even saying, does that feel good? Or if we continue with this, do you like that? Or please change the languaging, or how does this sound and feel in your own mouth?
Collaboration.
Yeah, co-creation.
There you go.
Co-creation. And that can be brought into anything, whether you're in the business, the corporate, the financial, the healing, everything is, the more we, I think, bring in the understanding of co-creative partnership, even with the planet itself, that we are going to take more positive steps rather than being at the mercy of someone telling you what to do, giving over your power, and also even allowing your own hurt and your emotions to be activated by another. Because of course it gets activated so you can look at it, but then it's so easy to want to blame and to want to
get stuck in that spiral and be distracted with anger and everything else rather than what you were focused on initially. Yeah. Wow. And I think if we can really speak to when you were younger, before that phone call at 15, there was this deep sense of isolation and kind of, I'm different, and maybe like some fears surrounding what that looked like, what that meant. Yeah, just feeling different and othered. I think that is a force that is contributing highly to the psychological crisis that we're seeing in the world, is this sense of, if people aren't talking about their feelings or diving deep, with friends, there is this sense of, well, look, if I look at social media and see that everyone's doing fine and doing great, then if I'm feeling anything but that, there is a sense of like isolation, or leading to even deep anxiety, depression, potentially mania, psychosis, this kind of stuff, right? And
for sure it's, this idea of isolation, and as much as I love social media because it helps us reach so many more people, I also, when I was working as a crisis specialist in a rural high school, working with teenagers who grew up with social media, who grew up with their phones, like in a different way than I did. Like I didn't have it till I was in my 20s. So, but it was this sense of no one understands me. I am the only one going through this. And I'm the only one going through this, and no one can possibly help me. No one can understand my pain. And, there's two sides to that, because I think that they say misery loves company. And so it's easy to commiserate with someone else and kind of stay in that field of all of the problems and the things that aren't going well. But then there's also something of sanctuary that can come, like you said, with opening up and sharing this with like minds or with friends or community or people, where you say, this is what I'm feeling right now. And someone can say, I'll listen to you. And then may I share my perspective? And like, this is similar to what I experience, so that people still feel heard without someone wanting to come in and be like, oh yeah, I feel the same way. And then it's invalidating, because then you're like, well, wait, I need a space to say this is my proper experience. And then I also want to know how that might be relatable to someone else. And that feeling of different, I do believe that we're all born, they're called the clairs, right? So the clairsentience, claircognizance, clairaudience, having divine hearing, divine knowing, divine taste, divine, that's clairgoustience, is divine taste, where people can actually taste the energies and things that are happening, or be able to touch objects and have an understanding of where that object came from. And so all of these spiritual gifts, which are written biblically as well, but totally misinterpreted. Humans interjecting in there. But, I feel like it's important to kind of backtrack for a second. So in university, in college, I was a religion major. So I was a religious studies, art history major, and I studied all the religions. And I was raised very Catholic and deeply connected spiritually, but I was like, nah, it's not this thing. It's not just this Christianity. Like, there's so much I want to explore. And so, I dove into all of that and the different texts and the different teachings. And always I kept feeling this essence of like, we're more than what we think we are. And we're definitely more, like, we have capacities that are far greater than what we're being told. And this spiritual gifts, like, there are gifts. The gift of being human is this human technology is fascinating. And when we work with it in a way that's expansive and cosmic, then our gifts come online. So, coming back to all these, feeling different, it's like, I thought everyone could feel how everyone was feeling. I thought everyone had the types of dreams that were so vivid and real that predicted things that were going to happen. I thought that people could see dead people. I thought that people could talk. But it was quickly related to me that that's not the case, and you might want to keep that on the DL.
Because this is our human experience. It's happening to me, so it's happening to everyone else. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's really not the case, and quite alarming if you had people coming to you at that time like, oh, this keep it on the down low, or that's not okay, or some witchcraft, or who knows what kind of.
Well, and even so, back to this working with these teens, I didn't mention anything about this. This was, this is a southern school in the United States. You don't want to say too much about that, but they'd be like, you're not from around here. Like, are you a hippie? Because I drove a Subaru. Apparently that's the marker of a hippie. And because I was vegetarian, and they thought that's
double
hippie. And they asked me if I was so small because I was vegetarian. And I had to explain genetics and kind of go into the story, bless. But students were coming to me, having panic attacks, having these deep traumas of familial stuff they were going through. But as we would talk and work, they'd say, but can I tell you something else? And that something else was often on the spiritual side. It was, I have a dream about people and then I find out they die, or whatever it might be. And so just to have me tell them, you're not crazy. This is okay. Let me help you. Let me give you resources, because I'm not going to be around all the time with you, but let me show you so you can read up more, you can gather your own info and recognize that this is okay. because I think of how many people are disregarded. They hide, then the gift goes dormant, and then they become spiritually ill, which manifests in a physical illness.
There you go. So like, yeah, spiritually ill or cultivating a superpower. It sounds like that is just such a huge fork in the road for people, right? And it sounds, I have some friends who are therapists too, and they enjoy providing therapy for kids, kind of young adolescents, this age, because it is so prevalent, and it's either you ignite it and allow it to be there and emerge into whatever it's going to do if you actually allow it to be there, versus really push it down.
And it's a challenge too, because just like when I was in the classroom teaching, I was always encouraging music and movement and sound, and I never yelled, and we had bells, and I had I was doing things very out of the box, and there would be this spark ignited, right? But then they're up against the world, and then it's maybe home life doesn't ignite that spark or cultivate or kindle it, or they go into society or something. So it's this interesting finding this balance of how do we create a world? How do we create a new earth where we are recognizing the light in every being, in every aspect, so that we can truly allow people to be who they are and shine their light. Like, that's essentially what that means, to shine your light, to be all of you. And if it is happening at the younger age, because I'm telling you, these souls coming in now are far beyond what we are. Some of them are coming in with sort of clean slates. They're not carrying, and they're not carrying all of this ancestral trauma and their own karmic trauma. They're coming in fresh and pure, and they're like, wow, what a place.
We can learn so much.
They are our teachers. They are the evolved beings,
and we need it.
We sure do, because we're kind of stuck in a rut where we're used to doing the same thing. And granted, yes, there are things opening us up, but that cultivation of magic, that cultivation of the spirit, the cultivation, I can feel it in my body right now, like that, the truth in it makes me want to cry, like, how did we put out the light of love
over and over
again? And how do we say, hey, this is the time is now, we can't wait anymore.
The time is now. So what do we do, Maura? What do we do?
We have conversations like this.
Yeah.
We do our own work, and we are willing to not stay in the work for so long that we forget to take right action and to do what brings joy. Because in a world that has, if we see it as the polarity of the antidote to pain is joy, then our truest gift is to rekindle and remember our joy. Even if it doesn't look like what anyone else is doing, even if your joy is just dancing, because that's a vibration and that's a frequency that builds up in your own being, and then you carry that with you. And remembering simplicity, because as you said before, we make things so complicated, we make things so complex, and we think through, and our brains are beautiful. The complexity of human thought, how many great thinkers. I was a book junkie, like reading and learning, and there came a point where I had to stop learning, because it was like, it's time to integrate this and absorb it internally to make it wisdom.
Absolutely. We can be constantly seeking and analytic, but let's experience. Yeah.
And experience it, and then just start doing it and allow it be your connection to this living, this life, this place here. And so to come back to simplicity is doing the things that you love, being joyful, keeping it simple, taking care of your body, your
mind and
what you put in and what you receive, and what you're who you're spending time with. And it's okay to walk away from people and places that no longer resonate. It doesn't have to be bad. It's like, I'm in a new version of me, and it's okay. And trusting that change, even though we know it's our only constant, but trusting that change is going to happen much faster, and it's going to be more rapid, I think. There's no time to mess around and ruminate.
There's momentum too once you start, right?
Yeah, and to not be afraid of momentum, and to let it carry you, and even all that fear that comes up from that, to just know that that's just part of it. And, I come back to, again, well, two things. One, listening to the more than human world, listening to the animals and the plants and the flowers and the bugs and the mycelium and the dirt and the water, all the elements, like really listening. Like, I'm not talking you have to be altered to do this. You don't have to take an alternate substance to do this. You are the alternate substance.
Get high on your own supply.
Get high on your own supply and just ask. And then be willing to listen in the silence, because I've been running a class weekly called Writing with the Wild, and there's themes. Last night was the theme Keepers of Strength. So, I mean, okay, what if I said to you, what animal do you think of for strength? Like, just let's do a quintessential kind of stereotypical.
Lion.
Okay.
Wolf.
All right. Those are not the beings that showed up during our class.
Ooh.
It was very surprising.
Do tell.
So instead it was actually mycelium.
Less mycelium, yes.
And which led us into the oak tree, which led us to the ants, and then took us to fire. And those were the keepers of strength for this constellation of people who joined and for what it was. But there was a thread and a common theme, which was community
and symbiosis.
And give and take.
Harmony
And reciprocity and rootedness.
And growth. Mycelia, it's just like wild. The hyphae just go, grow.
Yeah.
They just want to live and multiply and support each other.
And be anchors for the rest of life.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, mycelia.
Thank you. We're really grateful you're here, And we know you're otherworldly, but we're welcoming you to this world because you're helping us exist here.
Big time.
So it was really, it's been interesting because the people who are joining and writing, their comments usually like, well, I didn't think I was going to write anything. I didn't think I was going to hear anything. I didn't know. And then they've got pages and they've got actually quite specific information about what it is that they can do in their own life, like an action they can take or, and then it plays out over the week and it integrates kind of like our sessions. I'm like, okay, do you feel complete for now? Yes. And know that more stuff's going to unfold.
As life does.
And it's not 90 minutes, one and done. It's like
life continues.
Portal of that 90 minutes, and then things are going to keep overlaying and intertwining.
Sounds like a really powerful weekly writing session.
It is.
Yeah. So this more than human world, like if people really want to connect, is that what you're really just creating stillness with another being, whether it's a tree, whether it's a flower? Yeah.
Yes.
Sit together and see your like unity with them and like how you're more alike than different even too.
And also understand how we need each other. Like we are not, it's like this idea of I'm on Earth. I'm going to go be in nature. And you are nature, If you are nature, we have all the elements in us. We're all kind of, I have this, if I created an avatar of myself, like I feel like it would just have like leaves and flowers and vines and be, like super and maybe have wings and maybe have blue skin. I don't know. But
I love it. Have you thought about this?
Yeah, maybe just a little bit in a daydream.
Absolutely.
But it's also really, and goes back to what we talked about at the beginning, that first trauma of separation. And even feeling like I'm in this body, like, am I separate from you? You're a body sitting over there, and this table and these crystals and these beautiful plants. Like, am I, or am I part of it? And how can I welcome that in a way that's at my own pace?
Absolutely.
And at my own time. I'm sitting here talking to you, and then there's this frangipani tree outside, and frangipani keeps coming and reminding me so much, like, come smell me. Smell my flower. How does that make you feel when you smell that flower? And it's like, that's, of course, stop and smell the roses, but just, why is that not part of our natural rhythm?
Because if we were to do that, like the illusion of separateness would become less strong, right? We are in quite a channel of separateness and individualization, me, egocentric world, and kind of stepping away from that, as Bill Plotkin says, to a more ecocentric or soul-centric world is living in harmony, is really tuning in to everything around us, including flowers, plants, trees, beings.
And the funniest part about all of this, it's like, okay, none of this is new. Like, this is not new. It's 2024, and we're like, oh my God, I get it now. Like, we're all connected to Earth, But also, I remember being obsessed with I had a book called 50 Simple Things Kids Can Do to Save the Earth. And this was in the 80s. And I planted a tree on Earth Day. I was on the front page of the newspaper.
Ooh, gold star. Love that.
Gold star. And I was hyper aware of all this, but I felt like it was like running up a mountain. Like that was 1980, and we knew about recycling. We knew about conserving water. Like, we knew, when are we going to get on board? Like, is it actually going to change? And is it going to happen? And because the more consciousness rises, the more it comes in to the flow, but it still feels like we're in this hamster wheel of is it going to actually change? When are we going to get it?
Yeah.
And even speaking of Bill Plotkin, right, but even like, let's go back to the ancient mystics, Meister Eckhart, who was tapped in and knew, and he's one of my favorites, and, Hildegard of Bingen and St. Teresa of Avila and all of the mystics that was my food as a child. Super weird, I know. I used to collect books on saints, but
I love it.
But there was something in the life of the mystic that was already in tune with what we're doing, and we're just catching up. And people didn't want to hear it. And so, but that's the other thing you ask, what can we do? It's use your voice. Say, teach, say, like, pray it, sing it, laugh it.
Eat the food, read the books, explore, allow yourself to be.
And don't censor. Like, it doesn't matter if you sound like what you might sound like, whatever label you want to put on it. But like, I'm done censoring myself. I'm kind of over it, you know. Like,
kind of super over it.
Like, well, yes, I feel your energy. Oh, that's weird. Whatever. Okay. That's my language. That's my vernacular.
And what I learned from you big time was go towards what resonates and leave what doesn't. I know I already spoke to this earlier, but that's really what you talked about in therapy. And what has been a guiding source for me is we'll find our people. We'll find our community the more and more we choose to go towards what resonates, because there are others. I mean, you who's listening to this podcast, right? You're not alone, whoever you are. We're here with you. We want to talk about these things. We value life on planet Earth. And sure, we're on a channel of playing humans right now, and it's quite a game, really. It can be fun, it can be destructive, it can be beautiful and magical and painful and comedic. And we're here too, right? And I think remembering that as a collective is just baseline very helpful. Because coming back to trust, Maura, when you and I have worked through that topic, like, it's interesting that you said that is one of the biggest wounds for people, because for me, hands down, it's absolutely been, the idea of allowing people in and trusting people and seeing the good in people has been a journey for me. And I'm very grateful to have been working through that. But it's I think, a collective wound amongst humanity that did probably come with this, again, illusion of separation that you spoke of.
Well, because if we carry the wound that said, or the belief actually that says that, no one promised us that life was going to be easy, or it was going to be effortless in the way that we identify and define those phrases. However, life is beautiful because it's all of that. And we were up there ticking the boxes, like, give it all, I'll take it all. And then we get our amnesia, and then we come back into remembering over and over again. But the interesting thing, it's
what
like...
a cycle.
Yeah, what a cycle. And then we're like, oh, get me out of here. And then we leave and we're like, I can't wait to go back. I mean, if we want to believe in reincarnation and the cycle continuing, because there's so much to still explore with that. But it's that if we believe that life is that, then we stop trusting the source of life, if you want to say God or source or great mystery or great spirit, because, well, how do I know what to trust? Because you're putting me in this situation. And then again, we go into the self-deprecation and the belief that we did something wrong to get something. And that is where I think the biggest rewriting of the story of life is to take away this concept that it is a reward-punishment system.
Yes. Yeah, you didn't do anything wrong. And like remembering that our essence is all that we need to be whole beings. It's stepping away from the blame. Stepping away from shame, and remember we need each other. And you mentioned community and how having others is so important. And I also
think that from last night's class, something that came through for me, because I've kind of been a lone wolf most of my, I'm not kind of, I have been a lone wolf most of my life. I've chosen that for various reasons. I have believed it for other reasons. It's been hard for me to break into community, trust. Sometimes I just really need a lot of alone time. And yeah, there's wounding around feeling not accepted, also me not accepting community. So it goes in all those ways. But I also realize that community might be also more than what we give it credit for. So I've moved around all my life nomadically. I have people in all these different countries and time zones. That's still community.
Absolutely. And the liminal web, it's around us.
And the plants and animals and the stray dogs that I hang out with, that's community too. And it's also knowing that until, like you said, the resonance leads you, you'll know where you're going to land, where maybe there's just more community in one place.
Yeah.
But it's bigger than, and that's again coming in like, I'm alone. I'm like, you're not alone. And let's not, as they're saying right now, hello, there's the non-visible community.
Absolutely. Don't forget about us.
I know. They're like, hey, just because all you're seeing is these humans, we're here too. We're coexisting with you in the spirit realm.
Yeah, energetically.
And energetically we're here. And you call on us and ask us for support.
And we need that wisdom. We need any form of wisdom and collective support now more than ever.
Yes.
Yeah. Big time.
Big time. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. And so for people that are at home listening to this podcast, and perhaps it's the first time that they've been exposed to so much talk about energetics specifically, and maybe it's combined with this sense of you're wrong or that's not okay, and this silencing. What would you suggest for these people to really reignite that? What would that look like?
I guess I would reframe the understanding of what energetics is and take away any kind of religious dogma around it or any kind of new age dogma around it. And I would just bring it into the science of being and say, think about how you feel in your body. When you feel an emotion and there is something that moves through you, whether you get goosebumps, whether you get a chill, whether you get an ache, whether you feel heat or cold, you know that to be true and real. That is energy. And so you could stop gaslighting yourself.
For starters.
And stop saying it's not there, I don't feel that. And really get to know the quality and textures of your own energy, of how you feel things, of what you're responding to. And just like the mycelium, like thinking of these little antennas all over your whole being that are tuned in. Like we are tuned in, up and out, down, around, and we're just constantly picking up information. So if we are energetic beings, our job is to understand how to be with that, to accept it first and not numb it and not pretend it's not there. And maybe you just find a different vocabulary to speak about it. You don't have to say, oh, I feel this weird energy. Like, I'm noticing that I get really cold when I'm around this person. That, kind of takes away the scariness of what might feel scary to talk about energy. It's like, just be specific. What are you noticing? I'm noticing that right now my body I'm noticing my heart feels like it's pumping really hard. I notice there's some warmth. And I think giving a language that feels palatable and feels safe is a good start to be able to connect
and see what's next, because the more you allow it, presumably the more things may emerge, right? And as a sense of allowance, that's a really good place to start. I think noticing too, like calling it for what it is. That's it, right? Like, and then there's a sense of agency that comes with that, a sense of trust, a sense of, I'm observing what's happening. You're more in your body, you're more grounded, you're more in tune with your nervous system, your own physical form, and then you can extend your energetic body.
Because really, if we think of how supernatural and cool just our whole nervous system is, like just the fact that is wild. And I think of Alex Grey paintings, and Alex Grey shows, and it's like he's showing these human-like beings, but it looks like dendrites and, whole super highways of information running through our bodies at all times. Our vagus nerve being this like epic portal for information. And get curious about that. Like, I want to learn about that. Like, what is my vagus nerve actually doing? How is it connected to my gut health? How is it connected to my second brain in my gut and my intuition? And how do I tone it? How do I do vagal toning? You're a singer, you're a musician, you know all that, all the like we're working with the vagus nerve. We're loving on our nervous system. And even just touching, getting massage, or even just massaging yourself. So, yeah, the sense of agency to just name it for what it is and to get curious and also to ask questions. Ask your body questions in that stillness. Like, can you, what is it? What would it feel like to know I'm making a choice that's in my best interest? And then,
mind blown.
Is that my inner yes? And what does it feel like, body, when I'm making a decision that goes against my authentic truth? Ooh. It's a very distinct shift. Yeah. And it doesn't lie. So even when we go into doubt, we're like, well, I don't know if this is a trauma response or this is my intuition.
Mine's coming in.
Let's just ask and feel and be with that. And not even have a story about, okay, so this is a no because blah, 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 blah. Don't even go down that pathway. Just let it be a no for now, because no's can become yeses and yeses can become no's.
They just need space and allowance. Like, the seed is there, let it grow into what it is. And tuning in, I think that's a huge part of the recipe here, is really landing in our bodies, getting to know ourselves, our nervous system, our vagus nerve. I'm into nerding out about that further. I have absolutely explored Stephen Porges and all of his
polyvagal theory.
Wow. I mean, knowledge is power, and we're at a point that we're constantly being bombarded with information and content and this and that. And what if we took the initiative to really, okay, I'm going to learn about the vagus nerve, or I'm going to learn about even learning. As a guitar teacher, this blows my mind. I'll have students and they don't know how to learn. So they're like, oh, I didn't get it on the first try, so I'm out, I'm done. And it's like, welcome to the process of learning. And then we become forgiving with our mind too, because, oh, well, I did this and I got into trouble, so I'm a failure. It goes to blaming, right? It always goes to this kind of idea that we did something wrong. But we can accomplish anything. We just have to learn to learn.
Yes, learn to learn, and also recognize, again, let's go back to that story that it's going to be easy and effortless. Like, actually, you have to put in the work. You have to do time, and you have to build your threshold of tolerance. And I remember, even though I used to teach second grade for the longest chunk of time, and that's like the really reading, that's like the big stage. And, we ask them to maybe read 20 minutes a night, like just to, even if it's a read aloud or whatever. And it's like, it's building the muscle, building the time in which you can tolerate doing something. So like guitar, you can pick at that and maybe you got some blisters, but it's not time to give up. Like, when it gets hard is when people most want to give up. When it gets hard is when and that is persist, because that is the threshold that you cross over. And here's the fun part. Your threshold gets longer and you're still going to hit that point where you want to give up. But then you go, I didn't work that hard to get to this point to give up.
Look how much I've accomplished. Yes. And the more you're just rewiring, creating a new operating system. It's so empowering. It's so empowering. Limitless. Apart from Cirque du Soleil, I think I'm a little too late on being like a gymnast extraordinaire. But apart from that, I'm willing to try most anything we can accomplish, really, in these human forms. It's wild.
And that little part of you, that tiny child inside of you, is the one who really holds the key to your joy. Coming back to the joy, and it's like, how can I still have this in my life? And you ask, well, what are the things you love? Like, I can state them super easily on my hand. Like, what do you love? So if I asked you that question, like, Sarah, what do you love? And you didn't think about it, just give me 3 things. Sarah, what do you love?
Yeah, trees.
What do you love?
Music.
What do you love?
Yeah, connection.
What do you love?
These flowers.
What do you love?
The sun.
What do you love?
Quiet.
One more time. What do you love?
I was hesitant to say this, but myself. That's what came. That was big. Whoa. Whoa.
Whoa.
Whoa. But that was the only hesitation, right? It's really interesting. Like, I was hesitant. I was like, everything else just kind of came, and I'm like, surely I can't love myself. But I think the human mind of Sarah may have come in and said, you can't love yourself. When in fact I do.
And as you're saying what you love, what are you noticing in your body?
A lightness.
What else?
Yeah, like an exhale.
Because that's your soul. That's your soul play.
Are you therapizing me on my podcast right now?
Whoops. I just wanted to say soul play. No, but the thing is, it's like was that simple? Not for everyone. It might not be easy for everyone to say, what do I love? It might take some work to like explore that. But the thing is, as you're saying it, it's almost like you get pumped up like a helium balloon, and you're like,
and this and that and that and this.
Yeah, and then it's like, oh, that's a vibration, that's a frequency that reminds me of my limitless capacity to experience joy. And yes, loving yourself in all of those other things. And making that a priority is so amazing.
Yes. And this limitless, like, it really does then become multidimensional. I know we always come back to this, and this has been something I've been working through, is to be these finite human forms in such a multidimensional, wild, cosmic, humans can't even conceptualize, right? Our minds are so primitive compared to what's going on, just bopping around on this planet Earth here. Like, yeah, do you have anything to speak to that? How do we come back to this finite human form in this channel of 2024? Does this question make sense? Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
To create that exhale for people.
Well, I think it's tempering the thirst for knowledge and recognizing that there are certain things we are not meant to know, because it would be so overwhelming to have that amount of information at all times that we would come out of the present moment, because then it would become engulfing and pointless and overwhelming. And so to remember that everything that you need and all the information, all of the questions you have, I mean, I believe this is Rilke's Letters to a Young Poet, love the questions themselves as if they are books you haven't read. I'm totally butchering the order of that statement.
We get it.
But you get it. And it's like, you will live your way into your answers. You will live your way into your answers. And that is the process. And that requires patience.
And trust. It just keeps coming back.
Trust and patience. It keeps coming back. And, I think it's interesting that you said, apart from becoming a Cirque du Soleil, acrobat, because yes, that takes fortitude and that takes diligence and that's years of commitment. It doesn't mean it can't happen. It could if you chose to dedicate yourself to that.
I mean, you're not wrong. And it's true. I think just the concept of, like, when I look at a gymnast, how I form this thought is like, they're doing it from the age of 4.
Yes.
I can't even do a cartwheel at this moment, but if I tried every day, I also once upon a time couldn't juggle. Now I can juggle very well, and it's, let me reframe that. If I truly devoted my, endless time, you really can. You really can. It's shocking, right? I've just been mind blown by watching Cirque du Soleil, and like, there's a sense of fearlessness with their human form that I also would say that I personally don't possess in this moment, but it's something that I haven't cultivated, I guess.
Well, and I think like there's a both and here, because I think that reframe also brings us back to this question of the infinite and the finite capacity of a human. I would do myself a great disservice if I said I am going to I'm trying to think of something that right now is not really in alignment with what I actually want, but to challenge myself to say, but if I put my mind to it, I could do it. So I think that there's like this tempering of also we are infinite, and there are certain things that we actually are not. Ironman, running an Ironman. I used to think I'd want to run a triathlon and do this and this swim, but I also knew it was going to take discipline. It was going to take doing this every day. And there were certain limitations of my own physical body that said, if you pushed yourself past this limit, you're doing yourself a disservice, because this is not what your body is meant to do right now. And I'm using all these languages that doesn't make it all encompassing, but right now. And it's actually not where I want to be putting and dedicating my heart.
And that's back to resonance, is
Yes.
that right? Because you are so called to this otherworldly, like more than human world, right? And helping people connect with themselves so they can connect to other beings and this planet in general.
So and it's like, I know there are multiple things, and I've often said I don't want to limit myself. Like, I didn't want to limit myself with a label. I don't want to limit myself and say I only do this. But there comes a time, I do think, in our emotional maturity where we say, it is amazing that there are all these options and all these opportunities and all these things I could be doing and the things that I have talents for and gifts for. And if I'm really going to make the impact on myself and on the world that I want to do, I'm going to have to rein it in.
Discerning.
And that is the discernment that comes with emotional maturity. And I think that is, it's, the Peter Pan syndrome, right? A
lot of flashy lights. I want to do this. I want to do that.
Yeah, like shiny object. Bing, 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 know.
I really do know, of course.
So, and that's maturity, and that's human maturity and emotional maturity. And so it's not like you're saying, and some might play in that field and be like, oh, well, you're limiting yourself if you say you can't do that. And it's like, I'd like to reframe that and say, I'm not limiting myself, but I am choosing to be discerning and conscious about what I am dedicating my energy and time, because our energy in a human body is in fact finite.
Absolutely.
It is not, I run a lot of energy. I don't need a lot of food. Maybe I get it from the sun. Maybe I get it from breathing. Maybe I get it from nature. But I crash. And I know that in my human body, at my age, as a female, maybe hormones shifts, changes. I have to acknowledge that. It's my job as a spiritual being in a human body to acknowledge that and to see what kind of things I can do to support it so it's not so I'm not struggling so much with it. But it's really finding that discerning balance between the finite and the infinite.
Yes, the dance. And I like your mention of like kind of stop the quest for knowing, not, you know what I mean, right? Like we could endlessly, like, we want to get to the answer. Why are we here? What's going on? This, that, like it's really endless, And I think coming back to this simplicity of, something for me that I feel so strongly why I'm here is helping people see themselves so we can get back to this collective oneness, right? Away from that separate illusion that's causing violence and pain and separation and, pain to beings, to the earth, to everything, But I think, sitting in that is valuable. Well,
and we don't, like we talked about that word momentum, right? Like we don't want to slow down. It's like, time's running out. I got to keep doing this. I got to do this, and I have all the experiences. And for myself, as I've matured and as I'm maturing in the numbers game of the body, I want peace. I want stillness. I want simplicity so much more than I need to have a million different experiences that stimulate me. I don't need that anymore. I want to cultivate. I want to root in a way that's, I've rooted within my own heart and my own self, but it's like, I want to feel rooted. Like, and sometimes I talk to trees and I look at like the Malabar tree, which is so prominent in Thailand. And I had a connection with a Malabar tree in Phuket that the roots are exposed and it's on the beach and the water was quite low tide. But I was like, wow, what an existence. Like, that's so exposed. That's so rugged. That's so raw. And I was sitting at the tree and I'm crying and I'm just like, I'm so homeless and I don't know where to go. And like everything was kind of falling apart with my visa. And I was so tired of physically moving. I had moved 70 times in a year and a half. And I just rested in this. And the tree just said to me, she said, just root in yourself and let yourself be rooted. Allow yourself to be rooted.
Important part of the equation.
And you are so much closer than you realized. And again, it's that choice. Gosh, we're always at these choice points. What will I choose? And forgetting to trust that we have the agency to choose, and then to trust the outcome of the choice we make, and know that nothing is right or wrong. It's just leading us down these amazing pathways. And so, coming back to that simplicity of I'm rooted here now, and this is what I'm doing now. And it can change.
Always.
And maybe
Yeah,
in a
sure.
few years, I'm like, oh, I'm married, or I have a child, or I'm an astronaut. Like, I don't know what it will be, but I also know that it's like the imagination is so powerful, and I deeply encourage everyone to live in that imaginal world. But I think and feel more so now that our greatest challenge is being here on Earth.
Yeah.
And like, be here now. I mean, Ram Dass says it,
Sure.
be here now, be here now.
Yeah.
And that is taking, it's starving the myriad of options and choosing the ones that are the most nourishing to lead you into that present moment, to be rooted in the here and now, to have that experience. Does that make sense?
Sure does. Yeah, it's music to my ears, and I feel I'm in complete agreement with you, right? Like, especially in a world where there is just constant stimulation, pick me, do this, do that. And it's outward energy, and there's an essence of consumerism there, an essence of many factors at play that want your attention for a brief moment to remind you that it's still not enough, so keep seeking later, right? But if we can really turn inward and, like you said, root, sit with yourself, be still, spend time with a tree, listen to the whispers and wonders of what's around us. And I think that stillness is what will hopefully create some form of ripple, which it already has, into a greater collective healing.
And we may not live to see the result of that, and that doesn't mean it's not valuable and worthy to still have that as the intention, because as our intentions grow, we're already magnifying it, and it's already infiltrating and making the changes. Because how many people are waking up now? They're waking up so much. I mean, I know 2020 was a huge revelatory time for people, and it's going to continue to be that way, and it's going to be expedited as well as we watch atrocities in real time. And again, it comes back to discernment. Like, it doesn't mean you ignore that that's happening or what our role is, but you can go down into that cave so deep that you forget to have joy. It's an important antidote. It's an important need to have the both and, but to not shut your life off because others are suffering. And there is beauty in this becoming, and it is, I don't know if you ever read these books. There were books that I read as a child called Choose Your Own Adventure, and you would start reading the book, and then you'd get to a choice point, back to choice, and it would be like, if you choose go to page 72, if you choose this, go to page, so you're like constantly flipping through this book. Whoever
Agency,
but it's truly like genius, like quantum timelines and quantum, I mean, we could get that whole thing too, but it's like, I could have read the same book. I don't know how many myriad of options I would have had to have a different outcome, because every time I had a choice, there were two choices that led to another two choices and two choices. So I do feel that we're actually in this time where we're in a choose your own adventure in a way that we are more liberated than we have been before, because of the ancestral healing, because of the trauma healing, because of the awareness of the nervous system, and because of, yes, the information that's provided for us to take, doing ice baths, doing breath work, doing this, that. We have
the tools
are emerging to do it differently. And it's also a reminder of it's also just as valuable to sit in stillness and just listen and be like, hey, what did I get from this? And what can I do now? And
tune in. Yeah, listen. Wow. Big asks. Would love to hear from everyone and see how this lands.
Yes.
Really, it's inspiring and been a really empowering part of my journey to really learn to sit, coming from a bit of a matrix world of busy, go. Having these strong parts that were alive in me, and then choosing a new path,
and loving them and accepting them.
Yes. Oh, parts. I know we could talk. This podcast could go in so many directions, right? We could talk about parts forever.
Yes.
We could talk about multidimensional. Yes. Oh, yeah. Maura, it's such a gift as always to see you. Thank you for your time. Wow. I feel like we're coming to a close, but if there's anything else that you feel called to share, a message, a thought, an idea.
Oh boy, there's so many things that want to say. Well, first, I'm just so happy to be here, and it's so fun to talk so freely and just to see the thread of how it all wove together. It's a beautiful cosmic map, you know,
love it.
Just weaving. And, you know, also I think writing is something that I feel is a really beautiful gift that humans don't take advantage of enough. Whether it's just writing down a thought or penning a song or a poem or a story. And so I think that's my greatest wish, is to remember that when you feel you're most alone, to remember you've got two hands, right? And just find some paper, type it on your computer, just speak it into your phone, do a voice note, get it out, and then listen to yourself. Like, be your own best friend.
Thank you. Wow.
The Simplicity of Natural Things is my poetry book that hopefully will be published soon, and if not, it will be published in the next 6 months. And
I'm looking forward to it. It's not your first poetry book.
it is not. Architect of the Divine is the first, which is a map. It's a story map of this healing journey, I would say.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Can be found on Amazon and all the places you buy books.
All the places you can buy books.
And now where can people find you, Maura?
They can find me. I'm most active. I'm not on Facebook, most active on Instagram. Infant Evolutions. I'm sure we'll put that in
the show notes.
The show notes. And email, direct email. And I'm in the process of doing a new website, but my old website's still up. But
With lots of your writings. Yeah.
So.
Amazing. Are you taking one-on-one clients?
I do have space for one-on-one clients.
Wow.
And so if people are interested, we always do kind of an intro call to see how it feels. Which is how we met.
Wow. I'm so grateful for the universe handing you to me. And it was divine timing. I couldn't have asked for.
And divinely intervened. Divine intervention, I'd say, because as we kind of chatted about, I saw you this one day, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to work with her. And it was such a strong knowing.
At a juice stand in Copenhagen. I was like in tears with my friend going through an immense process. And didn't have a lot of money at the time, I remember, and just kind of like, oh no, surely I'm not worthy of therapy, and like putting money into that. And my friend was like, if you had money, would you go to therapy? And I said, well, yeah. She's like, go to therapy. I'm like, you're right. So then I found you online, and had already known that I was going to work with you, but didn't know you at this juice stand. Obviously didn't know what you looked like, didn't know anything. Was just teary with my friend, and then next thing you know, we're on the phone talking about soul spelunking.
Yep. It was so funny how that happened, because I remember getting your message, and I'm like, wait, that's the woman I saw. How did that happen? And that's been a trend, you know. Sometimes
how did that happen?
Yeah, how did that happen? Thank you, divine intervention. But again, magic, and when you're ready, the exact resources you need come to you, and the resonance.
Yes.
The resonance.
Yes.
And here we are, and you're just blossomed and blooming and doing so many wonderful things, and I'm just, my heart expands knowing that the remembering happened, and I got to be a part of it.
Thank you so much. You know, and all of me wants to be like, wouldn't have happened if it weren't for you. But I can hear Maura in my mind's eye. Yes, you were the guide that allowed me to see myself, and I am infinitely grateful for that. And I wish that for anyone to be in a safe container where they can really meet themselves and feel safe to go to places that honestly feel like you're going to die, or your nervous system is so activated that it's so terrifying that it seems like you can't go deeper. And it's been such an honor to go deeper and deeper, and I would not be here without your divine help for me to see myself. So thank you infinitely for all that you do.
And for your courage, to be willing.
Yeah, stay curious, bring joy. You know, wow, what an honor to explore these topics with you. And thank you so much for your time. I love you.
I love you too.
That's it for today. Thank you for listening. I truly hope that today's conversation was valuable to you. To learn more about today's guests, including links and resources related to everything discussed today, visit the episode page at soulplaycollective.com. I'm so grateful you're here, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on the show. So don't be shy. Send in your comments and let us know how each episode is resonating with you. If you'd like to support the podcast, the easiest and most impactful thing you can do is to subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on YouTube, and leave a review and/or comment. Sharing the show or your favorite episodes with friends or on social media is fantastic and super appreciated. And finally, for podcast updates, please follow us on Instagram at soulplay.collective and at Soulplay Collective on Facebook and YouTube. Appreciate the love and support. See you back here soon.